there's never been unity of command in Russia, and that's been the problem with how the Wagner Group has been used alongside the military. This attempted, it's not really a coup, but this sort of march on Moscow, if it does turn out to be that, shows that both the unity of command is missing and the fact that you've got this infighting, which is going to breed this psychological ripples, which originally we saw in Belgorod with the incursions by the Liberty of Russia group. So that amplifies it. And it's really whether this is a triggering event. And the real determinant of whether Putin goes or Prigozhin goes is really who stays loyal or defects. If the army stay loyal to Putin, he's still okay. But the czar makers in all of this have always been the intelligence and security services. That's the FSB, the successor agency to the KGB, the GRU, and the SVR. Now, at the moment, from what we've seen with the pronouncements of the FSB, that there is a warrant out for Prigozhin's arrest, that would seem to suggest that they're on Putin's side. So it's whether those elements are loyal or defect that will determine where this goes.
You said FSB. What does that stand for? The FSB, you said?
The Federal Security Bureau. So that is the successor agency to the KGB. So they're the ones who've always had skin in the game on all those things that you mentioned earlier on about who's taken over in the 90s and Yeltsin and all that sort of stuff. So they are the absolute czar makers in all of this. So defect or stay loyal, that will be the key determinant. But there's one key thing in this, and that is that Putin's domestic authority has been undermined. This has been a running sore with Prigozhin for a number of months where he's been pushing the boundaries, and Putin let this slip and escalate with no timely response. So he's weakened significantly by this. But the word of caution here is that we used to say in the West that we didn't merely have a Putin problem, but we had a Russian problem. That is, all those vying for power think the same. We now see that Russia also has a Russia problem, at least in the same term. But Prigozhin isn't, he's not in favor of the West. I mean, he seeks to catalyze a nationalist rebirth in Russia. He may suggest that, Russia is defeated in the short term in order to catalyze everything for a future victory. For example, he said that on the 25th of May, which is when he should have been shut down by Putin, that they need to mobilize the manpower and they need to mobilize everything with the workers and live like North Korea for a number of years. So this is a bad guy. So don't think that just Putin goes, that he wouldn't be succeeded by someone who's as bad or not worse. And the catalogue of people who might succeed him are pretty bad people. There's no sort of West-leaning liberal opposition there waiting to take over at the moment, unless there is an absolute strategic defeat of Russia.
Well, that's was my point I made earlier, actually, that potentially what you could have could even be worse. But Nigel mentioned that Prigozhin actually is a supporter of Putin. So he does support Putin. So even though he's marching there with an army, he's somebody who has not said anything bad about Putin yet.
He was a supporter of Putin until the announcement from Putin this morning. His real gripe was with the military chain of command, both the defense ministry of Shoigu and Gerasimov, the theatre commander, that they weren't prosecuting the war in a way which was satisfactory to an outcome for Russia's favour. So he was really going to try and get those sacked, really, by Putin. The fact that Putin came out this morning and said, "You're the bad dude and we're going to deal with you," that's when he's changed, for example, his Telegram channel output significantly. So again, to think he's on Putin's side now, it would be wrong, and is changeable in the last day, as we'll see other things changing in the next day, I think.
And very briefly, we've got about 20 seconds left. Russian media outlets, they're reporting that the Deputy Prime Minister, Denis Manturov, has just left Russia for Turkey. That sounds like he's scared. He's running scared. He's getting out of there just in case somebody's coming to get him.
It could be. Again, this plays into the defect or stay loyal. The elite have been around Putin for 24 years. They've got to buy into the regime. Prigozhin doesn't have an elite base. At the moment, I'd say that Putin is in the ascendancy, but it really depends on those loyalty defections of the major security agencies and the army.